When you run a Danish ApS, designing employment contracts that meet union expectations is not just about legal compliance. It is about building trust, reducing conflict risk, and positioning your company as a credible employer in a highly organized labor market. In this video, we will walk through the core elements your ApS employment contracts should contain to align with Danish union standards, even if your business is not formally party to a collective bargaining agreement. We will focus on clarity, predictability, and fair treatment, all of which are critical in a unionized environment. Start with a clear identification of the parties and role. Your contract should precisely state the legal entity of the ApS, the employee's full name and address, the job title, and a brief, accurate description of responsibilities. Unions typically expect the description to be sufficiently broad to allow for reasonable changes in tasks, but not so vague that the employer can unilaterally redefine the role in a way that undermines the original understanding. A good practice is to include a phrase such as, "and other tasks reasonably related to the position," while still anchoring the job in a defined function, department, or professional field. Next, address the basis of employment and reference to any applicable collective agreement. Even if your ApS is not formally bound by a collective agreement, unions will look for a contract structure that mirrors the standards found in major Danish agreements. You should specify whether the role is permanent or temporary, full-time or part-time, and whether any probationary period applies. If your company is covered by a collective agreement, the contract should explicitly reference the name and scope of that agreement and clearly state that the agreement, as updated from time to time, forms part of the terms and conditions. If you are not covered, it can still be helpful to note which sectoral agreements you benchmark against in terms of pay and working conditions, signaling that your baseline is aligned with recognized norms rather than purely ad hoc terms. Compensation is a crucial area where unions have clear expectations. The contract should specify the base salary, frequency of payment, and whether the salary is expressed per month, per hour, or on another basis. Unions expect transparent, itemized pay structures, including overtime rules, allowances, and bonuses. If overtime applies, spell out whether it is compensated through overtime pay, time off in lieu, or bundled into a higher fixed salary, and under what conditions. If your compensation model involves variable pay, such as performance bonuses or commission, the contract should describe the calculation principles, performance metrics, and timing of payments in clear, objective terms. Union standards favor predictability and the ability for employees to verify that they have been correctly compensated. So vague or discretionary bonus language without measurable criteria is often viewed negatively and can invite disputes. Working time, rest, and flexibility are also central to union expectations. Your contract should clearly state normal weekly working hours, daily working patterns if relevant, and any shift, evening, or weekend work requirements. In line with common Danish union practice, you should reflect statutory rest periods and maximum weekly working time limits, and clarify how deviations are handled. If you rely on flexibility or irregular hours, define the framework. When schedules will be communicated, how much notice employees will receive for changes, and how on-call duties are compensated. For employees in roles that might qualify as self-managed or senior positions, where overtime is not separately compensated, be explicit about this classification and ensure the overall package can reasonably accommodate the expected workload, as unions will often challenge arrangements that effectively circumvent overtime norms without adequate compensation. Leave and absence provisions should align with statutory requirements and commonly accepted union standards. Your contract must accurately reflect holiday entitlements under Danish law, including how holiday is earned and taken, and should clarify whether any enhanced holiday rights apply beyond the statutory minimum. Unions frequently expect clarification on public holidays, special leave days such as care days for sick children where applicable, and guidelines for unpaid leave. For sickness, your contract should specify salary entitlement during illness, documentation requirements, and any reference to collective rules or policies. Danish union standards generally favor full pay during shorter sickness periods and clear, non-punitive processes for managing longer-term absence, including opportunities for dialogue and workplace adjustments. Notice periods and termination terms are extremely sensitive from a union perspective, so transparency and fairness here are vital. Your contract should clearly state the employer's and employees' notice periods, ensuring they are compliant with Danish law and, where applicable, the relevant collective agreement. Avoid one-sided arrangements where the employer has a very short notice but expects a much longer notice from the employee. Such imbalances frequently draw union criticism. It is also good practice to briefly describe the process around termination, including written notice, handling of accrued holiday, severance where legally required or agreed, and the treatment of company property and confidentiality obligations post-employment. For salaried employees, ensure the contract is consistent with the Salaried Employees Act and resist any clauses that attempt to waive statutory rights, as unions will view these as red flags. Benefits, pension, and insurance should be articulated with a level of clarity that allows employees and unions to understand the total value of the employment package. State whether the role includes pension contributions, describe employer and employee contribution percentages, and identify the pension provider or the process for selecting one. In many unionized settings, defined contribution levels and specific pension schemes are outlined in collective agreements. If your ApS is not covered, matching or approximating these levels is often expected to remain competitive and avoid union criticism. You should also specify any health insurance, life insurance, or disability coverage, including waiting periods and who pays the premiums. Again, avoid broad promises with little detail. Unions prefer contracts that capture benefits in concrete, enforceable terms. Confidentiality, non-competition, and non-solicitation clauses must be drafted with particular care in Denmark, and unions pay close attention to whether such restrictions are proportionate and compliant with local law. If you include post-termination restrictions, the contract should specify their duration, geographic scope, the types of activities restricted, and the compensation the employee will receive during the restriction period as required under Danish law. Excessively broad clauses that effectively block the employee from working in their field without adequate compensation are likely to trigger union objections and may be unenforceable. A practical approach is to reserve such restrictive covenants for genuinely sensitive or senior roles with carefully defined business interests instead of using a one-size-fits-all template for all employees. Another aspect unions examine is the handling of workplace policies, data protection, and codes of conduct. Your contract should briefly reference key internal policies, such as IT use, anti-harassment, whistleblowing, and health and safety, and make clear that these policies apply and may be updated while still committing to communicate changes to employees. For data protection, it is good practice to note that personal data is processed in line with applicable data protection law, and refer employees to a separate privacy notice. Unions value clarity on how performance monitoring, email and internet use, and any surveillance technologies are managed, so think ahead about how these policies align with Danish norms of proportionality and transparency. Finally, unions and employees alike respond positively to contracts that are written in clear, accessible language and provided in a language the employee understands. Avoid overly legalistic or ambiguous wording that may obscure rights and obligations. Consider whether you should provide the contract in Danish where possible, and if you use a bilingual contract, clarify which version prevails in case of discrepancy. Before you roll out your contracts at scale, engage with a local labor law expert or, where relevant, consult informally with the union or employee representatives to ensure your templates reflect both legal requirements and sector-specific expectations. By structuring your ApS employment contracts around clear roles, transparent pay and working time, fair notice and termination terms, well-defined benefits and restrictions, and accessible language, you not only meet Danish union expectations, you also reduce the risk of disputes, improve your employer brand, and create a more stable foundation for growth.